Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming, and we're back with another Tower of God video. This time we'll be doing another set of the walk up the tower, and we'll be going from episode 81 all the way to episode 90. So we start off in the Tournament of Growth with Wagnan entering in and being informed that he has to take out the wave controllers to win for his team. So that is his opponent. If he takes out any of the other opponents, he can gain extra score on the way to that point. And we see Io explain the rules. So there's two sides. There's the final round happening between Mad Dog vs Fug, and then the Tournament of Growth winners will face off against whoever wins between Mad Dog vs Fug. And basically that the grand prize is up for whoever wins the finale. And we see that the stadium is set in such a way that there's two options. There's the calling center and there's the item store in the battlefield. And once they reach into the battlefield, depending on what they do, they can summon teammates in, or they can buy items and use it to help them with their fighting. If they knock out other participants, they score points, and the more points they score, the more members they can gather for their team. They can attack people of the other team, but if they knock out another team's opponent, that team instantly wins. And basically they're explaining the whole thing about it. And defeating a spearhead gives you bonus points on top of the regular elimination points, and basically that's the way that this match is going to go. And at that point we see Team Fug is getting into position on the other side of the island where they're going to host their part of the tournament. And we see that Wagnan has the hard choice of moving to a different location under the leadership of Kun. And basically he explains that they need to go and summon somebody else so that they could survive, because he doesn't think that Wagnan could take on Libo and Tibo, the wave controllers of the enemy team. And he's trying to figure out what is so special about them, because two individuals can't be put onto the team as the spearhead, only one. So there must be two in one, or one is a fake, or something along those paths. And he's trying to figure it out for himself. And finally he explains that for Wagnan, the strategy is to call teammates first, and that he has a route for him to take. Then we see the other team has one of the more dangerous individuals for their spear bearer, the Batman from Hell, Bondwan, and they're going to use him to make sure that their team can win. And they meet the enemy team's head and they fight. What they didn't understand is the enemy team's head is actually a parasite, and when they eliminate the body, they didn't knock out the parasite, and the parasite managed to escape to get into another individual at a later time. We then see that Team Shibisu had Vespa as their spearhead, and with what Anak told them, things are really confusing. And the fact that both Anak and Endorossi were really weird when they came back from that night, and that they knew something, they basically figured that something was crazy and they needed to figure out what was going on. We then see that Beta washes up on the island and he starts moving around, so we know that Beta is going to be part of all this craziness. We see Team Fug getting into place and getting ready, and that is how episode 81 ends. We'll move on to 82. There's not a lot to actually explain about what's being hidden in this whole situation. It actually just gets exposed as this fight continues on. So then we see Varagrav's team starts moving out and getting in place, getting ready for their match. And everybody starts moving out to the places where they need to be. And we see that Varagrav is a result of a special method called blood mixing That's what they did to make him, and that is what's his special capabilities in this entire situation. And we see that Beol decides he's going to take Varagrav on his own. He'll go himself and catch him and finish him right in the start. And that is their best weapon to win. And we see that Punk is hosting this side of the tournament, and he explains the way that the tournament between Team Fug and Team Mad Dog is going to go. So they have an invading point that they have to block, so it's basically like a March battle. And if they lose the invading point and Team Mad Dog manages to take the point, all the invading points, then Team Mad Dog wins. And we see that the countdown goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the tournament starts. We then see that Wagner arrived at his calling center, and he basically goes ahead and he summons his first teammate. And the teammate who he summons is going to be Quattro Blitz, because he's the only person who is within a fair amount of range for him to actually summon. And we then see that Tibo and Lebo arrive there while he's busy waiting for the summoning. And we see that the leader of the other team figured that they would do this here because he was the cheapest spearhead who was selected, and the only thing which came to be a realization was that he could summon more teammates. And he summons Quattro Blitz, and we see that there's a waiting time for them to wait for the summoning to load in, and that now Wagner is in trouble against Tibo and Lebo. We see Mad Dog vs Fug, and a Spear Bearer and a Light Bearer actually playing together, and they holding off the team at a range. We see Huryang sees that this is weird, and after a few minutes we see that Balm heads into the point where he was told to go with the key to enter into the area with the needle. We see that Reflejo starts charging towards him, and Novik ends up blocking Reflejo. So that is where episode 82 ends. We then see a flashback to Anak talking to one of the members from Team Mad Dog, the head basically, and she explains that they don't need to fight against Team Fug. They'll betray them. All they've got to do is delay them, and they'll steal the prize, and everything can go their way. So they'll get their revenge on Fug. And we see that Novik was approached by Ron Mai, if I'm correct, that's the name. And we see that they say that Mad Dog can help them for a short while. And then we see Reflejo fighting Novik, and we see that Novik speaks down to Reflejo, and Reflejo says, "You speak too arrogantly, you don't even know what's in there," and he basically calls him an idiot for that. At which point we see the island tournament where Wagner is facing off against both Lebo and Tibo, and Kun tells him he needs to run away, he needs to wait at least 4 minutes for Quattro to arrive. And then at that moment we see that Lebo and Tibo start attacking Wagner, and Wagner starts dodging under the commands of Kun. And we see that Kun realizes the reason why the two are there, and it's not just one on the field. And basically Kun tells Wagner that he needs to run towards them, and he does it, and at an exact moment he dodges. And when he dodges, he realizes that they couldn't notice him, and he realizes that they only half and half. That's the reason why they 2-in-1. And at this point, he comes up with a way to counter them, and Wagner knocks them out easily, and Wagner actually ends up knocking out the spear bearer on that team and acquires an additional 500,000 points, at which point the loading of Quattro is instantly completed. And we see that Wagner says he already completed the fight, and Quattro is going crazy. And we see that Kun was actually really relieved because Wagner was able to gain Quattro's trust, which is a very difficult thing to do. And we see that they summon more members to the team. We see Rak, Iwa, and Arc Raptor are summoned in, so everybody is now ready to keep going with the rest of this tournament. We then get Balm approaching the needle, and we see that Beta is also there, and that is where it ends at episode 83. We'll arrive on episode 84, and as I said, this isn't a very eventful section, and we see Beta introduce it as the needle to kill the king, and he explains that it was left by the irregular named Enryu, who killed an administrator, and that this was a piece found from the weapon that was used to kill the administrator, and that's why they had it here, but it's been dead, and they couldn't ignite it no matter how much they wanted to, so they needed to find a way to ignite the weapon. And that's why the workshop's been researching it for them, and that was to turn a human into an ignition weapon. Then we see Rafleo explain what is inside there to Novik, and that the plan is still going according to the way they intended it. And we see that Novik is surrounded by Team Mad Dog, and that Team Mad Dog is actually also a part of Fug, and that everything has been a setup. We see the whole project being explained to Balm, and we see that basically what they said was the devil that's inside Balm rivals the god of the tower, and that is something crazy to understand, because it means that something insane was left inside the tower for whoever the chosen one would be. And after a few seconds, we see Beta pulls a weird move of restricting the Shinsu of Viol and knocks him into a trap. Then we see that Team Mad Dog surrounds Novik, and that basically it's all over for him, and he realizes Viol is in danger. At that point, Huryang shows up and tries to save him. We also then at that same point get them fighting each other a little bit heavier, and they manage to escape, and they're running away trying to find another way out when they run into Yato, and basically Yato says that she'll show them the way. There's something they must do. And basically we see Beta says he doesn't want to see Balm happy. Why would he allow him to just steal the needle and be happy with his friends? Because of the research done for him, that Emily is still attracting travelers to her in a deep sleep, and that Beta intends to kill all of his friends. We then see that the Archimedes starts moving, and we see the results from the arena start being announced, and 4 members of Team Fug, including Jovial Grace, have left the team, and Ron Mai and Baragrav of Team Mad Dog will take their places. And we see that Team Mad Dog joined Team Fug, and now everybody is all confused, and that is the end of episode 84. I know that I'm not being very concise, but there is a reason for it. I'm kind of breaking it. We then see that Gustang is looking over what's going on and listening in, and he said, well, they found something really interesting. Let's see how the boy will overcome this hardship. And he wants to see the real power of the needle when it's on the hands of an irregular, or in the hands of an irregular. And the west side of the testing area, they now have the quarterfinals, which will start soon. So basically they're going to get a chance to fight again with everybody else who is involved in this year. We see that Vespa took out Bathman, and he also took out his enemy Spear Bearer quite easily, so he gained extra points. We see that they also received that weird news, and then we see that Hut shows up, and he also explains that something is really wrong and that they need to worry about that Viol, and he just stops at that point and he says no, Balm is in danger. And we then see Team Sweet and Sour getting ready to figure out what's going on, because they're wondering how in the world did Viol leave the team. It's not his manner, it's not the way that he behaves, it's not something that he would do. So Kun decides that he'll call them all back. They'll talk in the waiting area before the quarterfinals kick off in the growth tournament, and before they have to face off against Fug in the finals. And we see that everybody starts gathering together, and they're wondering if Team Fug has plotted something. We then see that the rest of the regulars from Team Fug show up and they start saying things. And we see that Kun is watching to see what happened in the match, when another one of the gamblers from Team Fug approach him and they explain who he is, and that they're all going to die in here basically. So Fug planted 3 gamblers into the battle, and that Balm is now being put into a massive situation, and that they're all in a massive trap. We then see Shibisu arrive and he sees Kun. We then see that Yato, Huryang and Novik are planning to free Balm from where he's locked up, and they basically explain what's going on. The forces comprised of some slayers and elders didn't want Viol to have the power of the needle, a mere slayer candidate. They hope to become the ones who can use the needle. So they joined forces with the workshop to basically turn him into the ignition fluid for the needle. We then see that Casino is the one who prodded Beta into doing what he did, and we see that everything is going down that path, and that Beta now intends to kill all of Viol's friends to make sure that he doesn't have a reason to fight back. And that is where 85 ends. We get on to 86. We then see Viol is stuck at the bottom, and the needle is reacting to him, and we see that he's trying to figure out a way to use Shinsu, because he can't break free from what is binding his Shinsu in this place, and he's trying to figure out a way out. And Refleo comes over him and he speaks, and he basically says that Viol brought this on himself, and that he was meant to be turned into a weapon for his master. And he explains basically that Balm was much more dangerous to them in the past. He was a slayer candidate who could betray them at any time, and why would they give him the ignition weapon when they could just turn him into the weapon and have it with someone who's loyal? And basically they said a weapon is controllable unlike people. So they find out that when the Archimedes gets over, they'll drop in the solution to melt him into the weapon, and that is the end of it. And he figures out how they had betrayed him and how well they planned this. And then we see Shibisu meet up with Kun, and he dashes towards him, and as Kun is about to run away, we see Hats approach him from the back with the gun, and Hats explains that he already knows everything because Willa Yuksong found out what was going on for this entire crazy match. So yes, Willa Yuk Song already knows about this, and this is the big secret that is being held. And when Kun finds out that Bam is alive, and then they find out that Lero told them about what's going on with the Archimedes and what's in its tail and what they intend to do, we then see that Iwa and the rest of the team all get into place, and they're all starting to realize what's going down, and they explain that Emily is actually a human being. She's inside the Archimedes right now. She's a victim of research FUG, and the workshop started to achieve a specific purpose. Casino and Huryang were part of the first part of the project, and FUG in the workshop had been working on this here to actually turn people into living ignition weapons, and then they wanted to know if they could melt a living ignition weapon back into a weapon. So FUG went through with that process, and that is what they want to do now by bonding an irregular with an ignition weapon and then melting him down into the ignition weapon to make it a weapon that they could use instead. We then see that Vespa is in a big fight with the rest of the others, and we see Kun tells everybody to stand back and that there's an emergency and that they all have to get ready for what is about to go down. We see that they couldn't stop Beta from causing trouble, and now they have to go through this here the hard way and work as two separate teams to actually achieve getting Bomb. Then we see that Kun is like, yeah, they're all going to go and rescue Bomb now. It's time for them to bring him back. And that their plan for the next game is to summon him back so that FUG can't do anything about it. So episode 86 ends there, and we go on to 87. Now, I might be a little bit incoherent in the way that I'm speaking right now, because this is quite a crazy section to go through. We then see that Lero Ro had released all the travelers from inside the Archimedes, causing a problem on the Archimedes. They broke down the security system, and this was causing more problems than were needed. At which point, Madarako decides that they're going to do more on their part, and they're going to keep pushing things with the tournament. And we see that the travelers are all going straight for Emily. They want to know what is going on. We then see that the semi-finals begin, and the way that it goes is Team Sweet and Sour will verse one of the FUG teams on the match on the map, and Team Shibisu will face the other FUG team. So basically all of Viol's teammates are going to be in one big match against FUG on this side, and then it's going to be FUG in the final verse, whoever wins. And everybody is basically being summoned onto the field, and they're getting ready for their crazy plan. So what they have to do is they have to rescue Bomb without breaking any of the rules. So if they summon him, then FUG has a big problem with actually holding Bomb down, and they're getting information through Emily, through Yato, right, who, as I explained, was Wariyun. And there's much more crazy things going on in this entire situation. So we see that everything is being related to them through Emily, and they know what's going on. And we see that everything is about to take shape, and the match is about to start. We see that Wagnan and Quattro are together. We see that Iwa and Raka together. We see that Arc Raptor is hiding somewhere, waiting for a crucial moment. We see that Vespa and Laure are in a certain point, and they're getting ready, and everybody is in position and ready to start their fights. And all of a sudden, Team Snake, who's one of the FUG teams, basically shows up, and they there to confront them. They a two-man fighting team. One is a flame eater, the other is a shield user because it's his hat that he uses as a shield. And they decide they're going to fight Rak and Iwa, which is kind of a perfect run because one is a spear bearer and the other is a flamethrower, so they in their advantage, and they start fighting with those two. At this point, the fight goes on, and they see that shield the guy is using is quite hard, it won't break easily. And the fight keeps going, at which point we see Iwa starts chucking out a flame, and the flame eater just swallows the whole thing and eats it. We see that everything is now going as they intend, and Iwa is pretty much useless in this fight because she can't use her flames. At which point she's attacked by the other guy, the shield user, and he basically offers her a chance. They can either kill her or she can join the team and climb up the tower with them. And then we see that Rak decompresses and he says, "Move your foot, turtle." And that is where episode 87 ends, because now things are about to get interesting again. The interest in the story starts to go crazy. Rak decompresses and he fights that guy there, hitting him instantly, and because he's bigger, he also has way more power. And we see that Wagner and Quattro are running. They're heading to the point where they need to be so that they can gain their access to Summon Bomb when the time comes. And we see that Beta is also on the field looking for Bomb's teammates because he wants to actually kill them, right? And we know that they're from the later part that is exactly what he wants to do. We then see that Devil Bond from the other gambler from the other Funk team shows up, and he gives the parasite to Beta, and he basically says that parasite will go into him and it will try to control him. So he puts it in and he explains that Batman thought he killed the spear bearer, but the spear bearer was originally that little parasite, and he just swallows it instantly, and they're like shocked because that thing could take control of him. And he explains that he isn't one, he's actually a compilation of multiple entities. That's what makes Beta. We then see that Rak starts showing his true power, and the fight starts getting a little bit more crazy as they start attacking him, and they actually manage to cut Rak a little bit. And after a few seconds, Rak says that they just need Iwa to fire her flame at them, and basically Rak grabs the flame eater by the throat and says, "Well, if you can't swallow, I wonder what will happen to you when the fire hits you." And that ends up burning him down, and that defeats one of their two regulars, and the other regular is taken down quite easily after that there. That gives Rak and Iwa their win, and Rak reveals himself as Rak Wraith Razor, and that he came here to meet the Black Turtle. If anyone tries to get in his way, he'll crush every one of them. And we see Beta shows up, and he asks if they are one of Viol's friends. We then see Novik, Huryang, and I'm forgetting her name. I always forget her name. Huariyun show up in a summoning area for items, and that is where episode 88 ends, and we'll go on to episode 89 from here. They're in the summoning area, and they said they could get Viol down here because they wouldn't realize that this is still connected. They're gonna go to the personnel summoning area and destroy it in this place when they figure out that Viol escapes, and all they've got to do is make sure that they distract the guards for a few seconds. Then we see that they're wondering who in the world he is, and that he is part of the tournament now because he's got the spearhead inside of him from the parasite, and he can actually participate in the game. We then see that Quattro is slowing him down and causing his fight to slow down, at which point Quattro decides that instead of slowing him down, she'll fight the other person who came in to try and stop him, and all Wagner has to do is keep running and get his friend into the game. We then see Kun really praise Wagner on the fact that he has very good qualities as a leader, and this is something which I also say draws parallel to what I'm thinking about in the end, that there's going to be a parallel drawn between this team and the original team that went up the tower, and that Wagner is going to fit the same role as Jahad in that entire situation. We then see Vespa attack Beta, and he expresses that he's the fastest regular, and we see that they all go at things and they start fighting each other, and things get a bit crazy. And then all of a sudden we see Rak intervene against Beta, and the fight gets a little bit more crazy because Beta decides to use an ignition, and at that point he becomes faster than everybody else and he gets away from them. We then see Huryang and Novik attack the members of Team Fug, and that is where episode 89 ends. Now episode 90 is a little bit less crazy. We see Baum sitting inside the room with the needle, and he's thinking that there has to be a way that he can get out of there. He feels like he's back in the cabin where he used to wait for Rachel endlessly, and he doesn't want to sit and wait anymore, even if he has to get blood on his hands, and he decides he's going to move. At which point Rafleo is still sitting over and watching, and basically is wondering, is there a problem going on outside, and that provided he's there, the regulars here can't do anything against him. And then we see Yato says that she wants to meet Rafleo, and Rafleo ends up in that area and he's speaking to her because Yato was actually sent by the elders of Fug, and this here makes it quite a heavy situation, because if she was sent by the elders and they instructed a betrayal, then things will fall apart on their part. They won't be able to carry out their plan completely. We then see Rafleo and Yato explain that this is their plans, and basically we basically see the whole story, and we see Huariyun pull off the mask, and she said she's yeah, and that he's just a shadow of Karaka, and basically that the whole idea was that Yato would be exchanged with Huariyun, and they need to think why he was given a fake needle. It's actually to make sure that the needle reacts with him properly and that it fills up into its container. And basically she explains that the plan that they have enacted is actually going to be the downfall of the Fug members, because putting Viol near the needle is going to cause the needle to go into Viol instead of having it left up to them. We then see that the rest of the Fug members start approaching, and we see that Novik and Huryang start approaching the door where Baum is being kept, and they have a level 85 patrol to fight. And we see Huryang says he'll take care of the robot, and Novik should get inside the room and get him out, and Novik tries everything he can to bust into the door, and then all of a sudden he feels this rumble and he just ducks out of the way, at which point a Shinsu blast hits the robot and destroys it, and coming out of the room is Viol with the thorn stuck on his back. And that is where episode 90 ends. Now it's time for me to actually clean up a lot of this chapter and talk about it in particular. So the craziness about this chapter is everything that's going down on the sidelines along with what's going down in the foreground. So here is what's going on. because of Viol entering into all of this craziness, we have Viol's part to play with it. We find out that the replica that they put into him is merely a container. It's a fake spear, right? A fake thorn, for other words. And what this here is going to do is it's actually just going to catalyze itself with the actual thorn to make it form into that container and fill that space. So when he gets close enough, the big weapon, the thorn, is going to fill into that container and grant itself over to Viol, and that is what its whole purpose was. That's why he has the fake container. And by sealing off his Shinsu inside that room and keeping him so close to the thorn, the replica was now going to react with the real thorn and force it to fall into the container. And that is exactly what happened, which then gives life to the thorn and causes Bomb to become the ignition weapon, the living ignition weapon, and have that power at his disposal. And that is exactly what's going on. Now, we don't know everything about the actual power within Bomb and all of this here. Even till this point in the story, we've only gotten little hints at what power is within him. And even if you're up to this week's latest piece of the story, we know that he is nowhere near capacity with the power that he has. I don't even think the Thorn is near the capacity to which he can achieve. And we know that he is looking for the rest of the pieces of the Thorn to actually slow down his development and to stabilize his power, because his power is really erratic. It's growing alarmingly all the time. So all of that is things that you have to think about for the later parts of the story. So yeah, this is where the craziness begins, and they actually really debuff Balm a lot at this point. Remember, Balm already drew against a Renka. That was on floor 20. He's now 10 floors up. He's increased in power. He's actually been getting stronger all the time as well. So you'd expect him to be a little bit stronger than that. He might still draw, but he can draw out the match for much longer, or tire out a Renka possibly and win. That is how crazy it is at this point. We then get what's going to happen in the next section, where he enters into the Hell Train, and on the Hell Train he receives powers and abilities that are beyond a regular and beyond a Renka when he gets Shinsu Black Hole Sphere, and he can even take on high Renkas and advanced Renkas quite easily at that point, which is where things get crazy. We get that hint when he defuses one of Karaka's assaults, which is so crazy that it could literally destroy an entire area within the tower, and we find that out at that point on the floor of death. So yeah, we got all of that coming up, and all of that is part of this season in the tower. We then get what's happening right now with the whole the whole fight in the Lopo Bia family nest, and we get the whole craziness that's going on where Balm beats White and all of that, and that is a whole other level of craziness to his power. That just says that he's risen to the top 50 within the tower in terms of power. He's actually at that insane of place, and if he keeps going, he's just going to get more and more intense. So we'll see how things go as it reaches that point. So let's hope that things follow this route and things get more and more insane, and Balm gets even more powerful, because I suspect Balm is going to go crazy with his power, and he's going to end up having to take on what's his name, Tramurai, and Tramurai is going to have a tough time facing off against Balm. At the end of the day, I don't think that there's anything that could stop Balm from getting even more powerful. I think Tramurai won't be able to defeat Balm, and Balm won't be able to defeat Tramurai at this point, but Tramurai will have to evacuate from this fight and actually fall back, because he wasn't expecting this level of combat. So let's see how things go, and hopefully we'll be there in not so long, because we're already quite a ways up. As you know, this is episode 90 as the end, and that's 90 plus 80. That means we're about 170 episodes up the tower. If we continue at this rate, we are only about 23 or 24 days away from reaching where we are with the story. So that is going to be quite interesting, and I hope to catch you all the way till that point. So see you all then, and have a great day.